Hey everyone and welcome. Today I'm going to be speaking about this upcoming partial lunar eclipse taking place in the sign of Gemini on the 30th of November 2020. This horoscope is brought to you by 1millionnice.com. This celestial event is basically a really intense and very karmic full moon taking place in the sign of Gemini, and it's considered an eclipse because it takes place relatively close to the nodal axis, which in the present moment is in Gemini, Gemini hosting the north node and Sagittarius hosting the south node. Now, just like any full moon, this one is also associated with the culmination of the lunar cycle, so closures, completions, fruitions are very likely to take place at this time, but at the same time, every full moon has very strong revelatory qualities because the sun illuminates the moon from the opposite sign. In our case, the sun shines its light on the moon from the sign of Sagittarius, so that always means some kind of clarity, some kind of truth being exposed, revealed, or it simply illuminates our minds, but also our souls and our unconscious mind in order for us to perceive our personal truth in a very different light. And when it's also an eclipse, well, that makes it that much more karmic, that much more important for us personally, and its effects can impact our lives much greater than just an average full moon. Now, at that time, the sun and the moon, as in the full moon phenomenon, is not going to hold a lot of relevant conversations with other planets in the sky, but the ruler of the sign of Gemini, Mercury, is definitely going to hold sextiles with the Capricorn cluster of planets, a tight sextile mostly with Jupiter and Saturn. So this is a very influential energy. The sun also holds a minor astrological conversation, a quincunx, with Uranus from the sign of Taurus. And Uranus is also the higher octave of Mercury, so it is even more influential. And the icing on the cake, so to speak, is that just a day before this full moon takes place, Neptune has stood still in the sky, preparing to go direct. So at this time of this full moon, it's still pretty much standing still, but it's already direct, which is a very powerful and influential energy shift, because Neptune retrograde was all about illusions, delusions, a thick fog and mist of confusion, especially, around the things happening on the world stage and how they influence our lives, even how they influence our own personal truth. So at this time, a sense of clarity is almost an urgency, a necessity, and Neptune, this very, very strong and influential Neptune, is going to be squaring the North Node in Gemini, and at this time, the square is pretty exact, because Neptune is going to be at 18 degrees of its home sign of Pisces, whereas the North Node in 19 degrees of the sign of Gemini, and the North Node is exalted in the sign of Gemini, so making both of these astrological influences very, very strong and influential. So basically, all of this energy is about truth, it is about information, it is about our thoughts, our way of thinking, our thought patterns, how we basically analyze the information, filter it out, and use it practically in every sense possible. And of course, since Gemini is also the symbol of the other, the twins, what we do with this information regarding our relationships with other people. Now, before I get into all of these details, let's just analyze the full moon as in the lunar eclipse itself. So at this time, the sun is opposing the moon. The sun is standing across the sky from the moon, illuminating it. The sun is in the sign of Sagittarius, which is our life views, our own personal philosophies, our own understanding and how we make sense of the world, of the universe, of our own existence, journey of life. So it is our deepest and most elevated thoughts. And Gemini is how we use that practically, as in the lower mind. Everything that we do, how we think, how we solve problems, how we use the power of our intellect on a daily basis to solve, everything from the most minor and average daily problems to the most complicated issues in our lives. So basically, this is the correlation between these two signs, the Sagittarius and Gemini axis. And of course, all of this is mutual because our way of thinking, how we think, how we process thoughts, how we use our intellect each and every day of our lives, what is deeply rooted inside of us, our programming, also influences our deepest thoughts, our life philosophies, our faith and beliefs. And Sagittarius can also be very religious, so it's not just great philosophies and Gnosticism, it can also be our religious take. And another expression of Gemini, what we think about ourselves is basically what we project onto other people. So the other, the archetype of the other, regardless of who that is, how close or distant that person might be, it is just a reflection of us, another us, with another body, another life, another story, but there is still an element of similarity, because otherwise we wouldn't be connected to that person. That can be from the very, very best friend, soulmate, to the cashier who maybe we only see and encounter one moment in our lives from a brief second. This is where everyone basically is kind of a reflection of us, but we have to figure out in which way, why, and how. That is why the sign of Gemini also rules siblings, or people who we regard as our siblings. It doesn't have to be strictly blood related. It can be, our soul brothers and sisters, or it can be people who are that close to us as brothers and sisters. But in a more philosophical sense, basically everyone is our brother and sister because we are part of the same species. So our genetic codes, with all of our individuality and distinctiveness, in a great percentage is still the same. We're still human beings. So this leads us that one of the potential manifestations of this full moon is going to reveal to us things about ourselves, our thought patterns, our way of thinking, our principles and even philosophies which govern our lives, but most importantly, how they influence our identity, because Gemini is the mind. So the mind is very susceptible to all of our education, everything that we basically inherited from society, from other people, from our teachers, our mentors, our parents, everyone who influenced our way of thinking all throughout this life. So the moon is going to shine its very powerful karmic light in this area of life, revealing certain truths to all of us. And those truths, those realizations are going to reflect in all of our relationships. For example, we can all of a sudden realize that a certain group of people who we usually relate to or who we usually do business with, who we consider as our circle of friends, for example, have a very negative influence on our lives because of their way of thinking or because of their life view. And this full moon can help us to distance ourselves or terminate this kind of relationship. Another expression of this maybe it can highlight the flaws, the mistakes, the self-defeating patterns in our thoughts and way of thinking, and that ultimately leads to a positive change, that leads to healing, and that leads to embracing the higher version of ourselves, because without all that self-defeating chatter of our minds, our lower mind, we are totally different people, and we act in a different way. And of course, this greatly influences our communication, especially what we speak about ourselves, how we speak about ourselves. The informational charge, do we always respect our own identity? Do we treat our image and what we project about ourselves onto others with respect, dignity, a certain kind of grace? Or do we simply blacken our own image through our communication, not take ourselves very seriously, or project mistrust? Because if we cannot trust ourselves, if we do not see ourselves as competent and worthy, as capable of doing many, many things, well, that already generates a lot of mistrust. And words are programs, and that if that is what we program onto other people, well, that is what we get. Of course, this doesn't mean to be deceptive. If we are actually genuinely not good at something, if we have certain weaknesses, flaws, or we simply have no experience at something, it is very important to communicate that as well. Well, because on one hand, we can get help, and we do not make fake promises or give a fake impression that we are better than we actually are. So honesty is very, very important. But of course, this can be used in a manipulative purpose as well, because we can basically program fake information about the self into the minds of others. So if we just speak about ourselves that very highly, they tend to believe it. But karma is karma. There will come a moment when we actually have to enact it, prove it, demonstrate it, and that is a moment of truth when either we fail miserably and lose all respect, or we will be forced to somehow live up to the expectations that we gave out to others, and that is a kind of hardship that is stressful. So one of the things that this full moon teaches us is the value of honesty. Don't depict about yourself what you are actually not, but do reflect, do show, do project all your virtues, everything that you are good at, everything that you are willing to share. Now, of course, there is a very powerful psychological element to this as well, which is closely linked to the events taking place on the world stage and all of this, big change that all of us are going through, because Neptune, as I said earlier, is squaring that North Node in Gemini. Now, the North Node is where we need to get karmically, what we need to do, our purpose, the future, the accomplishment of our goals, our karmic duties, for example, or our wishes and desires. And Neptune, as I said earlier, is rather confusing. It is truth and half-truth, and in the actual context, it is all the stressful information, all the fearful facts, which might not even be true, that simply bombard us from each possible source of the flow of information, like the TV, media, even conversation with friends, etc. So all of that. And that is extremely stressful, because no matter who you are, you get to a stage where you just don't know what to believe. Your inner truth might tell you a certain version of events, and then all of a sudden you hear 10 million different versions, and naturally you doubt. Naturally you second guess. And Gemini is a very adaptable, mutable, changeable, versatile energy. So what this karmic manifestation is going to be teaching us, well, it doesn't matter if you're confused, it doesn't really matter if you do not hold the absolute truth, even if you just simply rationally and logically cannot make sense of what is going on the outside. As long as you know your own truth, as long as you trust yourself, and as long as you know that you can adapt to any circumstance informationally, you can actually live with that confusion. It is absolutely fine. Human beings are not even meant to hold the absolute truth, the objective truth, because that is simply a utopic desire. There is no total objectivity, and even if there would be one, that would 100% lead to madness, because our brains are not designed to take in that much information or to be able to process things so very, very meticulously. So this karmic energy is basically teaching us how to live in a very uncertain, confusing informational paradigm when there might be 10 million different versions of the truth out there, and you don't even know what resonates, and it's still okay because you know who you are deep inside, and that is all that matters. And as I said earlier, since Gemini also rules the others, as in other people in our lives, chances are you're going to figure out, or it's going to be revealed to you, that no one is doing better than you. Everybody is basically in the same confused state, in that state of uncertainty, and it's absolutely fine, because as long as you have other people in your lives, you can share this, and that makes your inner truth, your inner security that much stronger, because you won't be feeling like you're the only one who is not so certain. As long as you are, as I said, adaptable, versatile, and just accept the fact that everything in life and existence, even in quantum physics, so to speak, even in the most precise sciences, is really subjective, then you're absolutely gonna be okay. Because this very powerful Neptune also squares the South Node in Sagittarius, and one of its expressions can be dogma and extreme religious or ideological fanaticism, where you simply cannot shift from that fixated idea or principle that basically animates you. And that means that everything in the universe in this special moment in time is going to come against that principle or that fixated faith of yours. It's almost like the universe will go out of its way to challenge and doubt your faith. And there's two possible options here. Either surrender and open yourself to a different perspective, or at least abandon the fanaticism, or the other option is enforce it, make it that much stronger, fight against the universe, but that will lead to maybe mental illness or losing all of your faith, and that is a massive spiritual trauma. And as I said earlier, there is another celestial conversation which actually forces us to be adaptable, even in our beliefs, even in our faiths, even in our higher thinking, because Uranus forms in quincunx with the Sun in Sagittarius. Uranus is the planet of truth. It is as objective as it can get. It is science. It is mathematics. It is precise. So that can represent really massive epiphanies, sudden realizations, but at the same time, big discoveries in the world which can challenge all of our beliefs. But if we are adaptable, then it's not really a challenge. It is more like a fascination. It is more like the gates of the future opening in front of us from a mental perspective, because when the mind is faced with something unusual, new, never seen before, well, it gets fascinated, it gets basically sucked into that excited state of what comes next, or how is this going to influence the future. But this can also be something really, really personal, which has absolutely nothing to do with external events. It can be a sudden realization coming from inside of you. It can be an information, a communication. It can also be a synchronicity, or it can be an event entering your life in a very unexpected and surprising manner, which can change everything, which has to do with your sense of normality, with the usual, with all the basic routines. All of that can change in a second, in an instant. And if we are adaptable, if we are ready to step out of our comfort zone, or at least not oppose it, not fear it, it can be a massive blessing. Uranus quincunx the Sun in Sagittarius can also represent new studies, new specialization, taking a new course, something totally new and unexpected, sparking up your interest, like maybe a profession or any kind of new intellectual or even practical preoccupation that you haven't tried before. So a lot of new things can enter into our sphere of awareness, and this can implicitly mean new opportunities. Now, also at the time of this eclipse, Venus from the sign of Scorpio, a part of the sky where she truly embodies desires, dreams, fantasy, wishes, experiences which we would really like to live, to experience, to feel. So this is a really powerful emotional energy coming from our unconscious mind. So certain wishes, desires, dreams that we always wanted to experience but could never truly have the opportunity, or things just didn't come together, or we never actually focused on it. We allowed it to stay unconscious. Well, in the most surprising and unexpected manner, we can either get the chance to taste them, live them through, or if they are very intense, if they are actually a negative expression, like obsessions, like, desires that we have because we envy others, because we want the same as others, because we want to fit in, because we want to meet the expectation of other people and not our own, then we might get the chance to see them for what they truly are and just eliminate them from our hearts, minds, and souls. And all of this is because when two planets oppose each other, their symbolism has to balance out one way or another, and Uranus in Taurus is like an earthquake. It is like a sudden, unexpected manifestation, while Venus in the sign of Scorpio, I already said that she is a very subjective, psychological energy of desires, dreams, wishes, even fantasies, even desires of sexual nature, are meant to give us pleasure, experiences, certain states. But because Uranus is chaos, it is unpredictable, this can either mean that if those dreams or desires or those feelings are authentic and they truly source from the deep core of our hearts, Venus, then Uranus can just make them in an instant manifest, and we have the chance to live them through, or at least try them out. But if they are toxic, if they are unpleasant, if they don't serve our highest purpose, as I said, envy, or just the expectation of other people, or just a misaligned belief, or something that has twisted inside of our unconscious, then this is also a perfect opportunity to see them for what they are and eliminate them. And there is also powerful synergy between these two planets, because Venus rules the part of the sky where Uranus is at in the present moment, the sign of Taurus. So whatever it is, it has a lot to do with our value systems, with our traditions, with our comfort, with our pleasures, everything that makes us feel alive. Even matters of love and, Scorpio lust. So we can expect a lot of surprises in this area of our lives. It can also play out, Venus in Scorpio sometimes is a very nostalgic energy. Sometimes she represents people who we truly and deeply loved in the distant past, who were relevant part of our lives, who gave us a lot of pleasant memories, so pleasure. And of course, over the course of the years, things change and we lost contact or we distanced ourselves. And some of those people can instantly, unexpectedly reappear in our lives and make a comeback. And that can be a massive surprise and shock at the same time. Or another totally different way of expression, well, let's say that you had a very unpleasant relationship with someone and that left a trauma, a wound on your soul. And you have a conversation with someone and they tell you that they experienced something very similar, but their story is really, really tragic, really, really painful, and voila, the little light bulb just lights up and you realize that what you lived through wasn't even that big of a deal, because there can be much worse things than what you experienced. And that comparison, that shock that another person got a much, much worse and deeper trauma of a very similar experience, that can simply heal you, because you can let go of it. You can say, oh, well, my wounds or what I lived through isn't even a big deal. I am very grateful and fortunate that I really didn't get the worst expression of it. Or that if it was a toxic partner, well, that partner wasn't even that toxic. Maybe it was just your way of perception which made that person to seem much more, let's say, lethal than they already were. So, this full moon is going to shed some light on a lot of things from the past and also the present, helping us to process them. And at the same time, as I said earlier, this is going to illuminate our way of thinking, our thought patterns, basically our own personal intellectual, mental methodology of how we process reality, of how we make sense of everything. And if there are massive flaws there, which naturally defeat us and cause a lot of problems, but all of this is invisible, at this time we can see them for what they are, and there is a chance for us to heal that, to eliminate that, to adapt something new, healthier and better. And this is for the long-term future, because this is an eclipse, so the karmic aspect of it is that much more profound. So all of us can expect the social landscape of our lives to undergo a massive change, because even if this isn't the exact purpose, as I said earlier, our thoughts and the way we think about ourselves, our image and identity also influences the other. So by revealing to us who it is that we truly are, based on our thoughts, our mental and intellectual patterns and our mental distinctiveness, it will give us a chance to truly see who it is that belongs in our lives, who it is that we have an authentic connection with, and who has to be, I'm not going to say eliminated, but at least be brought down from the pedestal. But of course, this is just the beginning, because there are so very many powerful karmic energies, way more stronger than this full moon, which are upcoming very, very soon. For example, there is a solar eclipse in the sign of Sagittarius, and that solar eclipse stands much closer to the nodal axis, so it is going to be that much more powerful, along with Mercury. So that is going to have very powerful impact on the human collective, because Sagittarius can represent our highest knowledge as a collective. So that is groundbreaking scientific discoveries. This is where like things which were just maybe a couple or tens of years ago sci-fi are now gonna be possible, and we're going to see them, perceive them. It is also a spiritual and even religious upgrade. So if a new moon is a very powerful new beginning, then a solar eclipse is something that changes the world profoundly, especially in a very important sign like Sagittarius, which has also much to do with the law, our legal systems. So, our legal system govern everything. Let's say democracy, for example. It has also much to do with long distance travel. And this is where the world has already changed a lot, including the astrology, where plane travel was once in the domain of Sagittarius, but now it is just a Gemini thing. Now, long distance travel in a Sagittarian sense is already something cosmological, like a space travel, like the newest travel technology. So we can also see all of that being upgraded and greatly revolutionized. And this is just one part of the energy. Just after, on the 21st of December, we have the great conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter in 0 degrees of Aquarius, opening this new era, the new paradigm. Aquarius is all about technology, the future, revolutionary, sci-fi, all of that. So this is where we're gonna have a massive technological boost, if not a true quantum leap. And the reason I said all of this is because this Gemini lunar eclipse is the beginning of that. This prepares us, this adapts us, this illuminates our minds and souls for us to be able to step into the new by eliminating all the flaws, everything that we may not take with us into the new era, especially way of thinking and everything mental. And it also illuminates all the new that we do have to learn to master, or at least be open to, in order to successfully navigate and survive in the new era, where, it is no secret that it's gonna be digitalization and technology dominating everything. Well, this concludes this horoscope. Thank you so much for listening. I do hope that you found this useful. And remember, if you'd like a personal reading, just log on to 1millionknives.com and find your dedicated advisor. Thank you again. Until next time, bye for now.